Hello, everybody. It is great to be here today. My name is Gary Fowler, and I am going to be the host today of VCTV and how to find funding for your startups. And it's with great pleasure that I have two of my esteemed guests here today, Jason Jacobsohn and Adrian. Adrian, don't want to butcher your name.
Niculescu.
See, that's
Perfect,
what I was.
perfect.
Niculescu.
Perfect.
So I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've done 17 companies. I've been involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company. Love artificial intelligence. Also started the first accelerator in Russia, Startup Academy, and also the #1 private corporate accelerator. So know a tiny bit about startups and have been doing them for 37 years. So I feel like the veteran of veterans in this environment. So with that, I'd like to introduce my guest. So Jason, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Yeah, happy to be here, Gary. Awesome that you're the host today as well. So this will be a fun and enjoyable discussion. And thank you for LaToken for having me here again. So I've spent over 20 years in the entrepreneurial and investment community in the Chicago region of the U.S., and it spans throughout the Midwest and even beyond that. But spent a lot of time connecting entrepreneurs together with capital sources. And I launched the Chicago chapter of Founder Institute, which is a pre-seed technology accelerator. I've been running that for 10 years. We've had over 120 founders complete our program. And I launched Propellant Ventures last year. It is a pre-seed and early seed venture capital fund. We focus on investing in B2B tech-enabled businesses throughout the Midwest region in the U.S. So industries like health tech, fintech, ed tech, supply chain. We've made 4 investments, and we're always evaluating investments. But we come in earlier than a lot of VCs. Our VC mentioned many times we're the first VC in the round, or one of the first Vs, and can help professionalize the round. And we support our companies as well by leveraging our network to allow them to grow. So we're excited about what we're doing, and it's exciting times with entrepreneurial investment landscape as well. So thanks, Gary.
Yeah, thank you. Adrian, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you,
Gary.
Where are you today? You look like you're in Dracula's castle or something here with the black shirt.
No.
You blend in. I got to tell you, it's like there's one black thing there. That's all I see.
This is on the back is my green screen, which is black. This is also white. So this is my screen for calls. In front of me, I have a lamp for TikTokers. I don't know if I can show you a little bit. It's like that, So this one is.
Oh, I got it.
So I'm actually in.
Your microphone went out. We can't hear you. Can't hear you. Go ahead, Nicole. Hi, Nicole. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. I would love to. Hi, Gary. Hi, Jason. Hi, Adrian. It's nice to be with you all today. Hi. Yes, I'm Nicole DeMeo, and I wear a couple different hats. Today, a little black one. But I mean, in terms of wearing hats, I do a few different things. One of them is that I am the founder of Outfront Solutions, and Outfront Solutions provides growth investment strategies, all with a marketing lens and hat, right? So we help companies with their branding, marketing, positioning for investment, for exit, what have you, and love working with entrepreneurs. The other hat that I wear is that I sit on the venture capital side of the table. I'm an advisor to the How Women Invest Fund. And we have a couple of funds running now. Our first fund is being allocated, and the second one is on the way. And then I'm a venture two other funds is Andra Capital, and the other is Seed Milestone Fund. So love looking at businesses and helping with fundraising, and have that vantage point of being on both sides of the table.
And you have a lot of hats. I got to tell you, you have a lot of hats.
Well, you made me count them, and I think I have 22.
Woo-wee. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
that's great.
It's fun. It's fun to accessorize with them.
By the way, I think you guys would like each other. She's nuts about hats. We got so many hats. I feel like a hat shop around here. Now, thank God she like cowboy boots too, because she has a lot of cowboy looking hats.
Big fan of cowboy boots. Those are a great hit with hats. Fun to accessorize that way.
So I'm going to ask you guys all questions. So let's paint a picture. There's a company in Des Moines, Iowa, that's incredible AI company. You know, they've graduated from a top tier university, moved back to Des Moines, but they got to raise money. And, you know, they're 3 years out of undergraduate, you know, they've come up with an incredible idea. What do they do next? Jason. I can't hear you. You're on mute. You're on mute, Jason.
Yeah, thank you. Got it. All right. Yeah, I think, you know, part of it depends on where they're at. If it's just an idea stage, you know, look for resources to help them really further vet it out, whether it's an accelerator that comes in at the pre-seed side of things, whether it's a founder institute or something maybe part of the university, but really surrounding themselves around those that can help them vet the idea, potentially build it if they don't have the capabilities of that as well. You know, obviously it's a funding discussion, but there are things that need to happen before that. And so I would say try to find those resources, talk to potential customers, you know, make sure there's a need for what they're trying to solve. And then, you know, customer development research is pretty critical in the beginning without spending a ton of money on the business. You know, and then you're also building a potential customer list as well. So I would have them spend a lot of time vetting this before they spend much money on it to make sure there is an audience that's willing to pay for this.
Yeah, so startups out there, remember, Steve Link and Bob Dorff have written an incredible book. Bob, if you're listening today, hi. Check their book out. It's on customer development because it's incredibly important. Many times people have great ideas, but never really vet the idea. So Jason's right on target with it. You got to make sure it's vetted. But let's say it is vetted and that they move down the pipe. It is vetted. What do they do next? Adrian, you're in Romania today, correct?
Yes.
What do they do in Romania? So somebody has a great idea. I've been to Cluj and Braun and what do they do? I mean, so you've got incredible technology comes out of the university. What happens next?
Actually, in Romania, there is a very interesting and emerging network of angel investors and venture capital funds. Some of the venture capital funds also use funds from European Union, which are only for early stage startups. And I'm talking about dozens of millions of euros. There are many co-working spaces, and usually every middle to big co-working spaces is connected to an accelerator, or there is a program for startups which is supported by major banks or big four consulting companies. So they have resources, they have mentors, they have money, they have technology. So they just need to start moving out of the comfort zone and look for it's a strategy called low-hanging fruit, okay, which is the next small step I can do to go further. Of course, the easiest way, if you ask me, is there are so many lists on LinkedIn with venture capital funds, angel investors, with their contacts, which are shared for free. But before deciding on which route you want to take, you need to sit down, and if you are looking for investment, you need to design your ideal investor persona. Okay, which type of investors investor do I want? Or investors, of course. If I want to join an accelerator or an incubator or a startup community, what kind of community? Which resources I can put on the table, which resources I need from others, because in business networking, because funding, expanding is a business networking exercise. But if you are in the room with 100 people, let's say at a networking event, and everybody's trying to sell, will be 100 hungry people wanting to take the bread from the others. So you need to think about what can you offer to these communities, so they will embrace what you are doing, so it will be easier to find the resources you want. So you need to have a giver perspective, even let's say if you don't have any money, but you need to have a giver perspective to start helping people around while you are searching like crazy for resources for your startup. But there are many resources which in Romania, for example, were not 4 years ago. It started to happen like 3 years ago, and now things are taking off like crazy from this point of view.
No, that's great. So, Nicole, so female entrepreneurs, so they're in Columbus, Ohio, and they got a really cool startup. What do they do next? What does she do next? What's the next step? They got a cool product. It's interesting. It's a impact product, clean tech. What does she do next?
Well, I always like to say, try not to raise money. Try not to raise money too quickly. I know on this program, it might be a little controversial to say that, but just make sure you're really ready to raise money and look at the different resources in front of you. There are SMB, small business loans that are available. There are often grants that are available. These are not taking equity from your company. And a lot of times, people are seeking to raise capital and they're just not quite ready for that. And so it's really important to look into these resources. Jason mentioned incubators. Yes, incubators, accelerators. Those entities typically have an expertise in your market areas. So you can learn from other entrepreneurs, and you can learn from the executives and residents, the mentors, and or the potential investors that come through an incubator or accelerator. So those are good places to go. One really great resource, and full disclosure, we invested in them as How Women Invest, is called Hello Alice. And that's a platform for capital and resources for the underserved market. So yes, the female entrepreneurs, but also people of color and veterans, those who are building their businesses, and it's full of resources. So go there. Keep tuning into LaToken VCTV. There's lots of resources. You'll find potential investors and or mentors and advisors who can give you some insights on the business. You'll understand what they care about in their passion areas, because it's a two-way street. When you're looking for, and I highly encourage business mentors and or advisors, make sure they're knowledgeable about your market space, right? They're typically very passionate and they will stay by your side for the duration. And some of them may turn into investors if you're just starting off with, seeking advisors and information. So I really strongly encourage you to go that route. Then when you really feel like you're ready, do come to the How Women Invest website and sign in, and you'll see our investment thesis, how and where we invest in companies. And even if you're not quite a fit yet, because we do require that the businesses that we invest in need to be revenue producing. And maybe if you're before that stage, still sign in, still get on our list, because you get on our watch list. There are pitch events that we let you know about. So the next phase is, and I could talk all day, but the next phase would be to get practice pitching. You know, Jason mentioned it, you echoed it, Gary. You've got to make sure you understand your audiences and your customers, really. And typically they're not you. So you need to do
I agree, Nicole,
solid market research.
100%. I know with Eva, my company, I raised $7 million in seed run funding in 4 months after I started the company. 2 tranches, a $3 and a $4 million tranche. But one of the things that's really important that I found is the advisors, having the right kind of advisors on board. I call it the rule of threes. Having somebody from Silicon Valley that's connected, that knows the environment globally, having somebody in cybersecurity, somebody that because privacy and security comes up, and then having a third person that has international recognition, that has just done a deal like John from 5.9. And John, if you're listening, hi, for 14.7 billion. Somebody that just, you know, it works. This is like, part of it's like, this is like we're on Broadway, right? Part of it's a show, and you're right about presenting. I remember I took a course at Stanford University on the presentation skills, and we have an acting coach and a Stanford professor, and it was really hard, actually. It was but you need to know how to present. So startups present. What about having an online presence? How important is it for each, Jason, for each one of the startups in terms of visibility? So when you see a startup, I don't know if you're like me, but I always Google their name as soon as I get them online. Do you do the same thing, all of you? It's like amazing, right? And yet sometimes you don't find anything but a LinkedIn profile. So what do you think about building an online presence to be able to support yourself for visibility? Jason?
Yeah, I start with LinkedIn. That's the first place I go when I meet someone. We have an online submission form on our website. We ask for a LinkedIn profile at a minimum, so we can see who the person is. So that's the first place I go to for the individual, so I can understand who they are and their background. And it's amazing that people don't fully fill out their profiles. So they may have their company there and nothing else. You've got to fill out your company profile, have a company page, post stuff on the company page, so there's, you know, online activity. That's a starting point. I mean, LinkedIn is the go-to resource for me for the business side of things. Yeah, I may do a Google search in general, but it usually, if they're on LinkedIn, that'll pull up first usually.
Mm-hmm.
But they then should have a good, you know, decent website. You know, it doesn't have to be fully built out necessarily, but it should be informational at a minimum, that, you know, we can find some basic information. During my due diligence on companies, I look at their website. It provides additional information that I may not get in their deck or on a conversation, or, you know, so I think you still want to have a good website out there for sure. There's, of course, other, you know, online places to submit your deal, whether it's AngelList or, you know, Gust, a bunch of other resources if you're raising capital. So if you do want to go through those resources, make sure, again, you have the right information on there. Take the time. That is part of capital raising process. As part of your brand, and it shows to me how professional and how serious you are about this. I know raising money is usually a full-time job for a founder, but you got to take it serious and, you know, get all that stuff buttoned up and look bigger than you are. We know you're a startup. You don't have to tell us you're a startup online, but just act like you're bigger than you are with a level of professionalism, and that will definitely help.
Did you ever hear of Scott McNeely from Sun Microsystems? I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
And he had lunch.
I worked for him, wrote speeches for him. Dates me.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had lunch with Scott a couple of years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and so I've known him from many years ago. I knew him many years ago. I met him. Anyhow, one thing that he said, I'll never forget it. He said, we made the nicest boxes. He said when they first started Sun with Bechtelsheim and Vinod Khosla, they had really nice boxes. And he said it was, we, you know, didn't have a nice place to manufacture, but we had really nice boxes. And so you're right. Presentation is really everything. I mean, I heard it directly from him. By the way, the next time, I don't know if you talked to him much, Nicole, but tell him Gary Fowler was asking about him. I had lunch with him.
Yeah. Oh, Yeah, well, he and John Gage and Ed Zander, and that was wow. Eric Schmidt. I
But I
got
mean,
to write speeches for all those guys. It
really,
was crazy.
Well,
I was a child. Yeah, it was
You should
amazing.
sell that as an NFT. Some
Yeah.
of those.
yeah. You should. I mean, Nicole, you're right on point with that. And just coming to you, I mean, how important is it to be able to present to the audience? Because, you look at it, I know that Steve Jobs, if you look at his first speech, he was sick and he practiced 6 weeks to do his presentation. How important is it to have somebody like yourself or somebody to be able to help you organize your thoughts so that you present powerfully for your audience? How important is that for a startup?
It's really an imperative. It's an absolute imperative if you're going to stay on as the CEO. A lot of founders, are happy to start the idea and look for a CEO or, that other partner, what have you. But if you're the face of the company and you're in that leadership role, it's imperative that you have really strong presentation skills. And I literally just got off a, How Women Invest pitch event, and active investors give you live feedback, and it's invaluable. So every opportunity you have to pitch, take it, and you shouldn't have to pay for these. Let's go and do this in places where it's entrepreneur and founder friendly, and that because there are a lot of us. We all volunteer our time all the time. I'm volunteering my time maybe on a daily basis because I'm crazy in love with building businesses and I want to see entrepreneurs thrive. And there should be all kinds of pitch events that you can participate in for free. And if you want to know about them, hit me up. I'm Techie Cat on Twitter, and I'll keep sharing pitch events and whatnot. But get that practice underneath your belt, practice in front of your other team members. Make sure you have the 3-minute pitch down, the 8-minute pitch down, the 15-minute pitch down. Yeah, it's key.
No, I agree with you. And Adrian, how important is a team when you're looking at to do early stage funding? How important is a team, and what should the team look like?
The team could be from one person to, I believe, 5. Somehow 3 is the magic number for a startup.
Okay, let's focus, Adrian. Let's focus on that. Why is 3 the magic number?
Because usually I think the source of why 3 is that magic number is related to the psychology of humans, because we as humans, we function in a certain way, and we have strengths and weaknesses. And if you put, let's say, 100% of strengths, the average, you can find those 100% of strengths in 3 people. I believe this is the idea. So usually, let's say one guy is the operational guy, so he's doing the hard work inside the business. The other is the financial one. The operational guy could be like the CTO, the technical one, and the third person is the one going like crazy with marketing, with meeting people and things like that. And they can complement each other and create the necessary ecosystem for a startup to start functioning. And that's why, because moving a startup from the idea to something is like sculpting stone. I like to use this analogy. And 3 people, I see the minimum for something to work, and based on the human psychology.
So what I've heard in the Valley, now you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard this from many of the VCs. They tell me they don't invest more than 3 because decisions can't be made in the organization. And I've heard it a number of different times. I've heard it myself when I've gone down through and done funding. It's interesting though. But you're right about having the rule of 3s. You need somebody that's operations, you need somebody that's technical, and you need somebody to be able to lead the company. Somebody that can empower the company and get that visibility that Nicole talked about. And Scott McNeely was really good, by the way. You did some nice speeches. But that's good. So let's go down through. So the next stage, what funding should they get? They don't have any revenue. Let's paint a picture. The company is not a revenue producing company. They're just coming out. Who do they go to, Jason, to be able to get that first round of funding? Of course, we got family and friends and that kind of thing. So is it the family and friends? Who do they go to for the first round?
Yeah, so it generally friends and family, or family and friends. Founder money is the first stage, but some founders don't have access to that kind of capital. And there are a lot of efforts that have been built to provide that first check for, underrepresented founders, for as an example. And so if they can't do that, or if they do that, angels are a next logical step. High net worth individuals, again, some people may not have access to that, but it's why it can be a full-time job. You've got to leverage the network to find those individuals. You get on platforms like Gust, and where angel groups can take a look at you. But you've got to be resourceful and get yourself connected to some of the right resources in your local community. And it's usually local to start. It doesn't always have to be that way, but many times it's people that are close to you, your friends and family recommend you to them. Now, there's some VCs and I would say even before that, or the best form of capital is revenue. Just get revenue as soon as you can. You don't have to fully build out your company, but get revenue, and that will go a long way. And there are some companies that the first round and only round they ever took was from a VC, because they've been able to bootstrap to generate revenue. So that is a path too. And there are a lot of micro VCs like Propellant Ventures that will come in at the earlier side of things and do micro investments, 25, 100,000, could, obviously more than that, but they will come in and invest alongside angels. They may not be the biggest investor in the round, but they can professionalize the round and help get additional capital. So, and then there's, of course, accelerators, pre-seed like Founder Institute. We don't provide capital. We do provide introductions to investors, or you've got something like a Techstars or a Y Combinator that are seed accelerators where capital comes along with it. And of course, giving up a good amount of equity. So it just depends on your stage and if you're in a healthcare space, for example, it may take a long time to get revenue, and you may not be going to the traditional path, especially if you're in life sciences. You may get some family office money, some government grants, some non-dilutive funding. So it just really depends on where you're at and what you have access to as well.
So how much do those incubators and accelerators, what do they typically take from a startup coming in?
So it varies, but it could be 6 to 10%. You get access. Yeah, I mean, you get 25,000 to start, and then you get access to maybe 250,000. So everyone's a little bit different, but it's usually at least 5-6%, usually more, but it just depends.
I heard of what is that? They call it the spray and pray approach, right?
With those accelerators.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about demo day, and I would argue that the customer for those accelerators is the investor, not the founder. Now, they are helping the founder, but it's all about getting you ready for demo day so you get in front of the investors. And most of the companies that go through those get offers of capital. They may not all take it, but almost all of them get offers. And so it's a different, Founder Institute, we're focused on founder first. We don't have investors waiting for you at the end, because most of our founders are part-time. Want to get to a point where they can quit their day job and work on it full time. So seed accelerators are still very needed, and I'm not knocking them at all. They're extremely important, and it's a great form of capital, but it's so difficult to get into them. I mean, you get thousands of people applying for 10 spots, once a year. Usually it's as hard as getting into like Harvard, right? I mean, it's a pretty difficult, so they're not very inclusive, put it that way. But they get the best of the best, and usually these companies do quite well. Y Combinator and 500 startups offer, they open it up. A lot more people can be a part of it, but.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, their investors are driving it
Oh,
because
yeah.
they invest and they want the filters to have the best startups.
Yeah, exactly. And they have a fund, right? So it is, and it's an investment vehicle. So you're absolutely right.
So, Adrian, question for you in terms of taking the first steps. So the startup has gotten their first round of funding, whatever that is, $50,000, $100,000. What's next? What do they do next? Because that $100,000 is not going to last long, by the way. So that's the thing. I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of crazy, right? Why in the world would you get? I mean, this is just in my perspective, 50 to 100,000 for a startup. It's going to last them like 2 months, and it takes 6 to 9 months to raise a round. So does it make sense to go for a small round like that, or should they just go for the whole deal, a $250 to $1 million round? What do you think, Adrian?
Every $1 million, every $1 million starts with $1. So to get to the 250, you have some stages, 50, 100, depending on the market, on the startup. But raising the first money is more than just about money. It's a validation. You have the possibility and opportunity to start working more organized. You are not, let's say, by yourself. You have to start becoming more, having more discipline, and discipline is important. For many people, discipline has a negative connotation, but especially in the investments world, the discipline has a very positive connotation. You need to look at the team to make a very good split between retainers and equity, because by so many founders saying, okay, we got $100,000, so we have a lot of money for salaries, which is usually a red flag for investors, especially at the in the early stage. And after that, of course, you need to think about the next round. But before that, you need to focus on building. Maybe if you have possibility, as Jason said, to get some money from your customers, depending on what you are developing. If, let's say, you have a software solution, it will take, 2 months to build. You can start making some contracts. You start chasing clients. Maybe some clients will say, okay, instead of paying you monthly, I'm happy to pay you 1 year in advance because I like to get a discount. So you'll get a lot of additional funding from actually selling the thing. For investors, this is great news because you are proving that what you are doing is sellable. So you will be able to attract more. Even some investors will start knocking on your door because they are hearing for the first ones who trusted you that, look, we may have found a gem here. So you need to start working on that project in any ways you can. And of course, don't live for the weekends, because the weekends are very good times for working instead of what the general culture is saying. Okay, you need to live for the weekend because Monday to Friday sucks. No, work, it's a huge part of your time, of your life. And if you want to put this into the market, you need to give 110%. So, and look all the time on those low-hanging fruits, which is the next thing you can do to advance towards funding, towards developing the project, towards putting into the market. Maybe you hire new people. Maybe you find some contractors, they have full-time jobs, they can dedicate few hours a week to your startups, and they just want equity, because they are well funded from their job. And equity, especially at the early stage, is the currency to play with. If you work, if you meet like-minded people who are ready to give some time, to put some energy, risking in a business which can become huge. And this is the task for one of the three people, not necessarily the manager, but the leader, the visionary, being able to engage other people in the vision, saying, okay, I mean, it's a huge idea. It's like the next Facebook. I'm in at the beginning. I have 1% of this company. Gosh, this is crazy. It's like in Tom Sawyer's book, I believe. The story of Tom Sawyer, when it was a guy painting a fence, and all the friends came to actually pay him to be able to paint the fence. It's something like that, similar.
Yeah, I remember the story about Facebook. Actually, talk about painting. Mark Zuckerberg paid their painter in stock, and the guy was worth, well, last time I heard, $250 million. So, it's amazing. It was a interesting scenario. So, what are the qualities, Nicole? So, you invest in these companies. What are the qualities of a CEO that you look for? What makes a CEO investable?
Well, it is super important to do some really solid due diligence on these founders. Are they subject matter experts? Truly. Like, is there a trail? There should be a digital trail that shows that they have a market expertise. They have a technology expertise. They, have a management expertise. So it's super important to look at the whole ecosystem around that founder, right? Check out their digital trail. Typically, they'll have written books, articles, thought pieces. Read those. Make sure that they're really solid. So look at everything around that founder and CEO. Also, the CEO typically needs to be the best salesperson for the company. It's an imperative, just like, to be able to successfully pitch the business, you got to be able to be a solid salesperson and have had the boots on the ground, sleeves rolled up in the business, so that they can be leaders for those folks who they're bringing on, and just really having a deep understanding of what the market needs are, where they've needed to pivot. I think another really critical trait is resilience. It's somebody who, isn't going to be knocked down by a 2 or a 5 rejections. 5 rejections may come in one day. It's brutal being a founder. And so that resilience is critical to the life of the business. And I think of one of my former clients, trendyall.com. They're a decacorn. And this is a female founder in Turkey. So, and I helped her like just 10 years ago. And I mean, I'm so proud of her as a leader, because even back then, raising, money and being one of the first women raising that kind, it takes ridiculous resiliency. I mean, can you imagine the pressure that you're under from your board, from the investors? So it's also important that you know how to hold your ground, but that you're listening. You gotta be a great listener. You gotta listen to the market. You gotta listen with a grain of salt to your advisors. You gotta listen with a grain of salt to your investors. Well, those are some traits.
I agree. And resilience is really important, because it ain't easy. And if it was, everybody would do it. One of the great boxers, Muhammad Ali, and also several other boxers before him, said, it's not the person that gets knocked down, it's the person that gets back up. So getting back up is really important. So startups out there, remember, get back up. If you go down through and you make a mistake, pivot, move in another direction. Doesn't mean you failed. It's like driving a car. You just do a U-turn and you move in another direction. Make sure you do that. Stay positive and stay optimistic, because if you're not positive and optimistic, not good things happen, and your team will not want to follow you. Stay positive. Positivity breeds opportunity. Jason, so what do you look at? So you see a startup, you say, listen, this is one that's really cool. I'm interested in investing. So not just the financial side. What do you look like? What are the pieces inside of it? The individuals. What are you looking at? What's the secret sauce? You say, this is the kind of company for me.
Yeah, so we do come in early, and so we like to see that it fits within our thesis. So just a couple quick things around that. We want to see that it's based in the Midwest in the U.S., and they have a B2B business model, and that's the minimum. Outside of that, the team is obviously very important, especially at the stage we come in. It's not going to be a fully fleshed out team. It's not going to be all full-time founders. Ideally, the CEO is full-time. The CEO should be full-time. And if the CEO or any other founders are seasoned entrepreneurs, they've done this before, that is a huge bonus. It's not always the case. Or if they have subject matter expertise, they know the problem they're solving, they know the industry that they're tackling is awesome. And if they're not really that deep in the industry, let's look at their advisors. Do they have a great team of advisors that know the industry, that have connections to the industry? And so a good leader should be able to find the better people to support the company that leader is deficient in or doesn't have all the relationships. So that's at a minimum. We like to see that. It varies based on the stage of the company. At the early stage, it's not fully fleshed out. If there's a little bit of revenue or I'd say traction, proof of product market fit, that's awesome. Depending on the industry, you may not see revenue, but they've got the pieces in place. They may have users, but if they have a little bit of revenue, that's great. We've invested in a company that had less than 10,000 MRR just as a speed, but they had some initial proof, but they had the pieces in place to scale the business. They just, it was ready to scale pretty soon. And so that's always important. Obviously, there's similar things we all look at. Is it disruptive? Are they tackling an industry that really they are making a difference in and really can build a good business around? So
excellent. Thanks.
Yeah.
Adrian, I have a question for you. In terms of investing, how important is having revenue? When you look at a company, what do you think? Is it on a 1 to 10 scale? Is it a 9? Is it a 7? Where is that? Whether or not you're interested in investing?
I would say 9, or at least good perspective for investment. So let's say if you build a McDonald's inside of the newest shopping center, and if they are looking for investments, they don't have a revenue, but there are 95 to 99% chances that it will work like crazy, based on what happens in most commercial centers. But if you come with a burger saying, okay, this is the best burger, but I don't have any systems, even if it's better than McDonald's, you need to build such systems to be able to sell it. The revenue or the potential to have revenue quickly is between 9 to 10. Very, very important. Because otherwise, and we see in the market, huge startups, they are consuming money like crazy from investors for years. They are not profitable, and maybe they will never become profitable, So maybe, of course, there are investors who are affording to pour money like crazy until something happens or will not happen. Amazon has this type of strategy to dominate a niche like crazy, no matter the cost. Once they dominate the niche, most of the money will come in their hands, but you need very deep pockets for that. So the revenue generating or the potential to generate quick revenue is between 9 to 10. Very, very important.
Got it. Nicole, so what happens next? So they have an MRR of $10,000 a month. how much do they need to grow month over month in order to make it interesting? What is like, there's got to be a formula. What is that formula?
You know, you always think there's got to be a formula. Do you think there's one, actually?
Well, they say there is, and I know Jason is because he's got some ideas about it. So, Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I just, just to say, all by way of saying, I don't necessarily always see a formula. I mean, absolutely, tracking momentum and revenue growth, and also reviewing contracts, LOIs that have been signed. That's all really important to that process. But is there a formula that you see, Jason? I don't get as involved in the DD at this point.
You're talking about in terms of revenue or traction?
Yeah. So they got $10,000.
Like revenue traction formula, right?
Yeah. What is the formula that you look at? What makes it a yes or no?
Well, I mean, there's more than obviously just revenue, but that's important. Like the one we invested in as an example, seasoned entrepreneur, he had sold his last company to LinkedIn for $200 million, sold 2 companies previously. So, for us, it was no brainer to be a part of his next company.
Right.
So we came in, we were the first VC. We invested alongside an angel group. We led the round. So for us, that was one of our first investments, made a lot of sense. But he had but even beyond that, it's a SaaS model. He had the channel partnerships already set up to scale the business. It's just, with COVID, there's obviously was a delay with some of that, but we knew that it was going to eventually start accelerating, which it is now. Actually, we're happy to say I learned that this week. So they had a lot of pieces in place. It's just the revenue wasn't scaling yet, but it's not going to be there at the early seed necessarily. It takes time, right? They had a good strategy in place.
Go ahead, Nicole.
And I just want to highlight the fact that there are other valuation drivers typically at play, right? So we just need to make sure to look at those. It may be, like I was mentioning before, you might have a few enterprise customers or LOIs signed, right? That's an important valuation driver. You may have users, actually people on whatever platform or technology you have, and users are one of those valuation drivers, and that is meaningful data to show business traction. So it's just, understanding and being able to tell the story about where you have momentum and traction, and knowing what your assets are and your valuation drivers. It could also be IP, you have a few patents on some things, and those can be, a medium or longer term revenue stream, or important to the business that way. But they're typically, those are the types of valuation drivers that we're looking for.
I got it. Adrian, I just have a question for you. How important is IP? So how important is intellectual property? Somebody has a great idea. They have customers. Is it important for them to have their IP registered or not? Do they need to file patents or not?
This is one of the assets in any business, even that one can be more valuable than anything else. If I remember correctly, Volvo was purchased by a Chinese company. So the Volvo company was not as valuable as all the patents which were gathered in the business over time, which could be used. So intellectual property and protecting the intellectual property to trademarks, to authorship rights, through copywriting, and of course patents is very, very important. And they are actually intangible assets which can be more valuable than the business itself, can be investable later, can be sold, can be licensed, so are very, very important. And also when you are investing, you need to see and ink the connection of the intellectual property with the startup. Because let's say a founder could say, okay, I'm an inventor of this thing. I'm using it in this startup, but I can also remove it if I want. So you've invested money in the startup, but I will take my invention and I will use it, or I will sell it to somebody else. And you, as an investor, you will be burned. So it's very, very important.
Yeah. So make sure that the IP, when you're doing your due diligence, everything's in line. Listen, we're coming up to the top of the hour. Jason, if you go down through and summarize and close us out, and how can people reach you?
Yeah, I think just, as I mentioned before, best form of revenue is, or best form of capital is revenue. Build your company and bootstrap it, get as far along as you can before you talk to a professional investor. You won't have to give up as much of the company. So that's part of it, but you're going to be more interesting and valuable to an investor the further along you are. But for those that would like to get a hold of me, I can be reached on LinkedIn, of course. My email is jason@propellant.vc. You can also submit information on my website. But if you do submit anything, make sure you fit our thesis. I get a lot of people submitting stuff that does not fit our thesis, so pay attention to that. All investors would like you to pay attention to that as well, so just focus on that. But again, happy to talk to people if you reach out to me. So thanks again for having me here, LaToken, and Gary for hosting us.
Yeah. Thank you. Adrian.
Don't be afraid to hustle, because I see a lot of founders grinding for something to push it, to take it off, let's say for 1 year or 2 years. And I see myself in these people all the time, so I can relate to their pain, to their effort. So don't be afraid to hustle. Don't be afraid to be persistent. Push like crazy, even if people around you will say that you don't have any chance. Somehow, if you knock on a lot of doors, some of them will open. And of course, be okay with getting a lot of no's. So let's say if the statistic in a market is like, for a yes, you have to get 100 no's. If you only get 50 no's, you will not be able to have a yes. So be ready to be to be in this fight, and to get few yeses around so many no's. But you have to focus on the yeses. You can find me on LinkedIn, Adrian Niculescu. Of course, I answer to all messages, not all the time immediately. It was a fantastic talk today. Gary is an amazing host. And of course, Kyle is also an amazing host. And this is an amazing show. Very happy to be part of the VCTV family. And thanks to LaToken team for everything.
Thank you. Nicole?
Okay, my advice is find a way to fall in love with your business every day. Find some aspect about it. Keep bolstering your resiliency, because it is a long, tough road. And the second thing is be resourceful. You don't always have to be a leader in everything, in every aspect, but you do need to be the most resourceful person in the room. And by being resourceful, you do things like you watch LaToken's, VCTV shows. It's free. We're all volunteering our time. You go and you check out these other resources of incubators, and you find mentors and advisors. So just be really resourceful for your business, and get in touch with me. I love it. I love the plight of helping to build businesses and making sure that great ideas get funded. Best way to reach me is also on LinkedIn as Nicole DeMeo. And I always like it if you say, hey, I saw you on VCTV, or this is how I found you in the world. And then also I'm at TechieCat on Twitter. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And I just like to say, resilience is critically important. I built 17 companies, and I got to tell you, stay positive, stay optimistic, build a strong team, people that you can trust and can work with you in the long term, because it ain't easy doing it. It's like being married. And at the same time, stay positive and stay hungry, because hunger is really important for each and every one of you. So I'd like to thank the LaToken team today for joining and allowing us to make this happen. I'd like to thank Jason, Nicole, and Adrian for being part of this incredible, as Adrian said, amazing opportunity. And so stay safe, stay happy, and tune in. And I will be on for another show at 2:00 with one of the top cybersecurity experts in all Africa. So tune in for the Founders Report on VCTV in a few minutes. Take care of yourselves. Stay happy. Bye-bye, everybody.